Interstellar warfare, ancient megastructures, celestial marvels, unparalleled discovery, a consistent concurrent player count of well over 10,000, and the best soundtrack you ever heard. Few games managed to keep a dedicated player base for several years, but Stellaris is one of them. Since 2016, if you can believe it, Stellaris has changed the game in space strategy, arguably being the biggest disruptor for that genre in forever. Thing is, even though Stellaris is a Paradox game, it doesn't really act like one. Sure, it boasts an unlimited ways of playing, sports deep government management systems, and hosts numerous ways to tailor your empire, and all of these aspects are of course what makes Stellaris so paradoxy and grand strategy-esque to begin with. Space is a vast place then, but what sets Stellaris apart from its grand strategy siblings on a fundamental level, despite many similarities, is the game's classic 4X philosophy of exploring to find resources that help you achieve different things, and which govern different sections of your economy. Coupled with the freedom of creating an entirely new civilization from scratch, beginning with a single system, as opposed to being tied in an intricate web of historical realities, Stellaris does offer an early game that comes across as a lot more forgiving than other Paradox games, even though the mid and late game would very much beg to differ. Stellaris' premise of having a Paradox grand strategy game take on the more traditional 4X genre, but as an RTS, unshackled by many of the limitations of previous heavy hitters in the genre, is genius. There's just something about Stellaris that feels so much freer, so much more open, and so much deeper than other Space 4X games which came before it, and I think it's because Paradox was not afraid to bring everything it had learned from Grand Strategy, compress it just a little, and thus exploding the barriers of what was previously thought possible in the genre. Of course, the game has come a long way since 2017, with many praised and controversial changes released after launch, which have kept the game vibrant, evolving, and sometimes again, controversial. I remember the first major change Paradox made to Stellaris, and it was one I didn't necessarily quite like. You see, in the beginning, you could choose between 3 different ways of navigating space: warp travel, hyperdrive, and wormhole. Warp drive allowed you to reliably, but slowly, travel between closed systems and explore space that way. Hyperdrive was fast in travel, but only allows you to travel on set space star lanes that are set up between each system, which would mean that travel would take longer if your empire was wide. And lastly, wormholes allowed you to jump within a set radius of your wormhole station, and depending on your stations, you could then jump further and further out. As you might be able to tell, these differences have been scrapped in favor of the singular hyperdrive and hyperlane system, which connects the galaxy with various lanes. The negative is of course that this takes away choice and RPG elements. The positive is that it streamlines and balances space travel, while also allowing everyone to create strategic choke points in a much more straightforward manner. A few choices like these, or some that otherwise change the game, like say planet management, have been controversial to say the least, but also generally allow Paradox to focus on new improvements that do not need to be tailored to a number of different systems working opposite and parallel of each other. You could argue that that's what Paradox games are all about, but I do give them the benefit of the doubt here, since Stellaris is their first game of this kind and does still offer so much flavor and choice to begin with that streamlining space travel, for example, isn't necessarily the worst thing that could happen. The thing about Stellaris is that you always start the game having fun, because the RPG journey begins before you've even clicked start game. You begin by choosing your own civilization from a pre-made group of species, or you can make your own based on all of the various options available. This is not just a matter of species, but of government systems, of ethics and values, and of what makes your species unique in both positive and negative terms. With later updates, you can even choose between organic or fully robotic species, choose whether they are hive mind singularities or independent thinkers, decide your preferred habitat biomes, your ship design, and of course, things like galaxy size and even shape. While these concepts are common to Space 4X games, I find that Stellaris does it better, more immersive, and by doing so, it gives the player a relationship with the game even before the journey begins. But the real journey of Stellaris is of course space itself, that vast universe of darkness, light, the all-consuming, the celestial. It's about uncovering ancient secrets on new planets, meeting new civilizations beyond your own solar system, and learning to be cautious when encountering interstellar creatures roaming the universe, or when meeting decadent and ancient fallen empires whose military powers remain beyond comprehension. At its core, this is what Stellaris is all about, and what it does so well. Truly, venturing out into Stellaris' galaxy is like no other strategy journey in existence, exactly because everything from the visual symphonies, unexpected phenomenon, and the writing of events are so uniquely strong. You may begin as a human species on planet Earth, perhaps you are a singularity machine race with different habitability preferences, or you might just begin on an ancient ring world that can be upgraded with time. But no matter where you are, everything both looks and feels so immersive. It's all further elevated by the one-of-a-kind orchestral soundtrack that truly rivals or even surpasses even the greatest sci-fi music out there. I dare you to listen to this album without shedding a tear or feeling your chest swell, because Stellaris' music, like nothing else, brings this game and the feeling of truly exploring the vastness of space to life. Stellaris wasn't always as complex as it is now. It always featured resources, for example, but the number of them have expanded over the years to create a more circular and intricate economic system. But perhaps one of the greatest additions were the Ascension perks to the Tradition system. You see, one of the coolest systems in Stellaris concerned Traditions, a system of abilities and civilization-wide boosts you apply as you accumulate more of the Unity resource. Alongside regular playing, this allows you to focus and shape your faction how you want, focusing more on military, economic, or diplomatic playstyle, for example, as it befits you, or a combination of them. Ascension perks, though, are unique and major bonuses you can unlock as you complete various tradition trees, allowing for even further boons in the areas of your choice. Through careful gameplay and combining traditions with Ascension perks, you can create a civilization tailored to entirely unique playstyles, which is something Stellaris does exceedingly well. It allows for wide or tall playthroughs, or indeed everything in between, and with later expansions, unique Ascension paths open up even further possibilities for customization and game-changing breakthroughs. Examples of these are the Biomorphosis or Synthetic Dawn paths, which allow either biogenic or machine races to add or manipulate their own species entirely, and as such, represent paradigm shifts within Stellaris. As mentioned earlier, a bunch of stuff in Stellaris have changed since launch, from UI tailoring to space travel itself. A large recent one, which has created some controversy, is the change to planets and cities, i.e., things like available building slots and populations. Truth be told, I've taken great breaks between my Stellaris playthroughs and have not kept as up to date as with other Paradox games. But that being said, I am a fan of the changes. I find them clear to follow and easier to navigate, even though it definitely is a learning process to figure out how to focus different planets' production sectors in order to optimize them fully. It's no secret that the recent 4.0 update brought with it a bunch of bugs, which to my knowledge have by and large been fixed by now, which I myself can attest to after several recent dozens of hours of playtime. It is clear, however, that many players still feel upset over these events, which is understandable, but in my experience, the game faces few or no systemic issues, and if you haven't played in a while, I honestly do not believe you'll find anything immediately wrong or buggy with this experience. Perhaps unless you're looking at late game performance, which I guess can take a hit, but which is also a not unheard of thing in these grand strategy games. Stellaris is just so unique, such a grand and vibrant experience that there's nothing quite like it. I mean, what other game allows you to change your entire fleet to nanite-based ships that cost nothing in upkeep whatsoever? What other game lets you turn into the endgame threat on a systemic level and become the menace? What other experience has you come across a developing hive mind on a newly discovered planet? What other form of entertainment opens up the possibility for the creation of a galactic community where you can assume the role of council member and then take it over to create a singular galactic empire with one voice? None, that's who, at least combined. Because after more than 9 years of post-launch development, Stellaris has become a space odyssey par excellence, the quintessential grand strategy game for sci-fi lovers wishing to leave the mundane behind and truly explore the great final beyond. It is so well written, so flushed with experiences, and so varied that you'll likely never be able to play it all, or at the very least, exploring every major avenue will demand thousands of hours. But that doesn't mean you won't get an unforgettable experience even after a few dozen or even hundreds of hours, and because of this, I wholeheartedly recommend Stellaris in 2025 and beyond. If you've any experience with Stellaris, or if you played it regularly or off and on throughout the year since launch like I have, let me know in the comments, and tell me what you think of the game now versus previous iterations of it. Make sure to leave a like as well, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!